I never did see your presentation, try to get together, but I haven't started just yet.
Yeah. Was that the PowerPoint I did?
Yeah.
Did you get a copy of it?
I did,
Yeah.
but rather here, you
Yeah. Pretty simple.
I know, you makes it how dumb I can be.
Yeah.
Well, I do think today, unless you talked about it in that meeting, we should talk about your increase in membership and
Oh, yeah.
the good things that are
Actually, I'll come down and buy, I'll come down and buy you. And the uptick as far as people taking advanced classes.
Yeah.
For sure,
That's
two
good
needs
stuff.
coming home.
You have a forum.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect.
So I guess we're calling this meeting to order. It's 16:09. Did everyone get the email that I sent out, just briefly summarizing what we talked about with the list? Unofficial, not in the meeting. So we didn't have a quorum. I feel bad that Christine was not able to join us via web, but that wouldn't help with the quorum apparently anyway.
No, the quorum has to be members present in the room where the public meetings take place.
Gotcha.
We tried to get the legislature to change that, but they
On how did you hold meetings during COVID?
allowed it during COVID under emergency. Then they stopped it again. So
Lovely. So, yeah, let's see what was on the agenda. I know one of the things that you had brought up, in that was the possibility of, police officers responding to becoming EMTs, responding to Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie calls.
yeah, he can explain those better. I don't know.
Yeah.
The lower level calls.
And then holding during the day, holding lab until the police EMT gets on scene. I wasn't sure how medical direction would feel about that. So I
Probably not good.
chatted with them briefly about it today. I was in the office and they were not a fan. I can talk to the Tom Tremarco, the head medical director, further about it. I don't know if he would be any more inclined to be open to the idea, because I know they are starting up an EMT program. If he had input on the training and education and that kind of stuff, I don't know. But their initial response was that they would not be in favor of it due to the, as you can, I'm sure, attest to, the occasional occurrence where it gets dispatched as a low level call. You get on scene and like, holy crap, I need everything.
Yes.
And causing a delay in initial ambulance
I
response.
think the liability, I'm scared.
Yeah.
If
So-
it's not a trained medical person. The basic. That are
Right.
training.
Right, but no.
No, they would be
After get
fully
the,
trained.
Oh. that's
after get them
different.
trained as
Yeah,
EMTs,
no, they wouldn't do it now.
but the delay in a,
The talk was fully train them to the
correct,
EMT
yeah,
level.
get
I
them up to
wouldn't
the
even want
EMT
'em-
basic level.
I don't even think I'd want them at the EMR level. I
Yeah.
think I'd want to go one.
Clear too.
And then it was just that really low level calls coming in. You know, dispatch our people.
And it has gone.
Respond.
It has gone the other way before where it came in and sounded like the roll was.
Yeah. It happens both ways.
Right.
And I worked fire EMS for 16 and a half years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it goes in all directions, but the majority of the ones that come in, you know, I guess it'd be how you write the letter. If it's borderline having chest pain or something,
Echo.
When you send them-
Lebanon's coming.
yeah, trouble breathing, consent, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Have I had the ones that
Assist and
sound like
that kind of stuff.
absolutely nothing and you get there and it's something, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's very, very few and far between. So, yeah, I think if we decide to even go down that road, then we have those discussions, and
Yeah, in a more official capacity.
we have a lot better laid out plan.
Yeah, we gotta require the police officers to do this, because we tried doing a class and some of them left and went to another town.
It was,
There was never any follow through.
yeah, it was something that was just brought up, in our last conversation. Something that was an idea that was brought forth. And that apparently it was expressed that some of the police officers would like to know, have more medical training, because a lot of times they're always around. So they're usually the first ones there. So regardless of whether or not they would take on the liability of holding lead until they got there. I think getting them trained up and the stipend and everything, I think that would be all great for,
Yeah, and it
for
would
the,
be
for the
how you
community.
put that,
period.
it would be how you put that program together. I mean, and with more people coming on, I think we had some other ideas of paying daytime stipends for our people.
Mhm.
So I think it really looks at a entire program where you train them and they're responding, and we go back to dispatching our people first, daytime and nighttime.
Mhm.
And it would work the same way.
Yeah.
They would be there quick and say, yeah, get someone coming, or they'll get someone coming. I think what the police chief was saying, he could show the numbers a lot better if we really want to run that data. Of those calls, there's, you probably don't know the numbers, but there's a large percentage that end up being no transport or definitely a basic transport.
Somebody asked me a question this week and I didn't know the answer to it. I don't know if it's the right time on the agenda, but it seems like it might fit. Have we ever run the numbers of blowing up our ambulance department, for lack of a better term, completely? I'm saying I don't want to do this. We just have a look at it on paper and just paying Lebanon outright.
We can do that easy.
Have we done it in the past? Have we ever done that?
I don't know that we've really done it that way. I mean, we know what the call volume is. We know what they charge per call.
Yeah.
I can get to the past 3 years, what the cost would have been and what we're paying.
So again, I'm not advocating this, but I think it's a good exercise to go through, and I think we're gonna owe it to the public to be able to say, we looked at that. And it's much more cost effective to do it the way we're doing it. Plus, you get a much better service having people local. It's no doubt, we're better off with that, but
Much quicker response time.
yeah, it might be something we take a look at, the numbers together.
And I'll look at it. I think I ran the numbers last year myself, but
Yeah,
that was all in the thought process too, of we need to have this committee and just talk about what we
Yeah.
want to do.
thank you.
Let's see. So last conversation, it was, came out with basically what we were thinking the purpose of this committee was, from our understanding. From our, perspective, we need to just review our current services, what we have. Potentially looking at ways to educate the public as to what we do offer, both, in, I'll say, exceedance of what they're expecting, and then also where the shortfalls are. Like, okay, you know, we do only have capability of staffing an ambulance in town nights and weekends. During the day, 6 to 6, the ambulance will be coming from Lebanon. In some way of educating the public about that. Just so that way we can adjust the public's expectations of, you know, okay, we are getting an ambulance, you know, I'm expecting to see an ambulance, Lebanon ambulance show up because it's 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Kind of thing. So they're not surprised. Even though most people, when they're having a medical emergency, they just want an ambulance to show up. Most of them don't care that much where it comes from. How effective the current services are. And coverage, both whether it's hours of the day, areas of town, what the needs are, when the calls are we effectively covering all of that? And then what improvements could we suggest, or what changes to be suggested? Ranging from suggested the idea to research that you just made of, again, not trying to hurt feelings, just being frank, Um, you know, should we continue ambulance coverage, full transport and ambulance coverage in the town?
I spoke with Ed about this too. Lebanon years ago.
Mhm.
They had Golden Cross over there. And it's probably good to know why they went back to doing their own thing.
Yeah.
I remember that when I was younger. They used to have, hired them to do the town service and then they went back to doing it themselves.
Mhm.
Which you see,
But with the
They're
ups
big.
and downs.
yeah, they're a big animal now.
Mhm.
So,
Um, so ranging from that to potentially moving all the way to the other extreme of, I want to say what Lev has, but you know,
probably be a more
it-
expensive
when,
option.
when does it, when is it, well,
Right.
with populations growing, with, the world's not getting smaller population wise.
Well,
The area is not shrinking population wise. Between the college and the other businesses in the area, how expensive things are getting. In the valley, we're just seeing population grow year after year. At what point do we need to consider expansion of services? Potentially to include paid staff, and what would that look like? Would that be both fire and EMS? Would that just be one or the other? Would that be a little bit of both, like a combination thing? Anywhere in between. More of the short term, thinking about how we can improve services now versus that would be more of a long term thing. So my understanding is the town fellow citizens approved the new building with the understanding that it's staying volunteer with the exception of the police department. So if our ultimate recommendation does come out that we need to progress over the next 3 to 5 years to a partially staffed department, similar to what Canaan has, whether we like them or not, is neither here nor there, but their model of paid staff on 6 to 6, Monday to Friday, and then volunteer stipend, nights and weekends. Then that would be a rather big lift, and it would take a lot of convincing to get our fellow citizens on board with it. Because they apparently have already agreed. I wasn't here for any of those meetings regarding the new building, but I've been educated that that was a big sticking point where they're like, well, if we're paying for this, you're not gonna turn around and be like, well, we got this new building, now we need to staff it. I got the impression it was one or the other that they were signing off on, not both.
Wasn't quite that detailed, but
No.
there were questions of, are you gonna expect that? And it was that right now, we don't plan to. And I would agree with you that I think politically, in the next few years, we don't wanna do that unless it's absolutely necessary.
But if we can ultimately show them, here are some of the metrics that once we cross this metric, then it's time to have a different conversation.
Yeah.
And you project that metric to be crossed in the year 2029. I think that would be good to come from this
Yes,
group.
that would be perfect. In the short term, there were suggestions for, to cross-train basically anyone who works for the town. Whether it's EMTs cross-training as firefighters, firefighters cross-training as EMTs, police officers cross-training as firefighters or EMTs, DPW cross-training as either one, fire or EMT, and then giving them stipends for the cross training. You become more, I'll say, valuable to the townspeople. Great, I'd give you a bonus for it. Looking into that as a possibility. Some of the data that we were, that was brought up at the last conversation to potentially be pulled is looking at our current agreement with Lead Fire. Where right now they are charging us, I think I saw in the agreement, $380 some per time that they are dispatched. whether or not they actually make it here, whether or not they actually transport a patient. We're paying them almost $400 every time they're dispatched.
365.
Huh?
365.
365, there we go. And it was just under 4. You know, is that the best option, right, you know, for us for the entire town? So some of the data that I requested, which I did just get approval of to use my other position to pull the data, was response times. You know, is it more appropriate for us to have that agreement with Lebanon for anything, I'll say between town center and Leb City, and anything from town center to Canaan, have a some kind of agreement with Canaan to cover? Because they do have the staffing for the same time period, 6 to 6, Monday to Friday. And would they be open to that? Don't know. We don't know for now how much of a time difference there is between the two. Because Leb usually is in-house Monday to Friday. However, that is also their busy time when they're running calls nonstop.
I pulled the averages if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, the average for our ambulance is 15 minutes and the average for Lebanon is 14:30 something, so almost 15. So they're fairly comparable.
okay. So, that kind of data, I guess potentially Google Maps it or see, I'm sure there's calls that, Canaan came in to cover because Lev wasn't available, or something like that. Here's see what their times are in comparison. That. Something else, potentially at some point. I know, Chief Martin here has mentioned it as a possibility. Joining forces, fire and EMS, everything under one roof. Having like a, not a public safety, I guess, public safety chief that would be over fire and EMS. So it's one less person, that's reporting to Ed. And then, you know, potentially down the road, like 5 to 7 years down the road, merging that with police chief and having a public safety director over everyone that's housed in the new building. Merging the two services would make it a lot easier, correct, for cross training if everyone's under one house.
As far as getting their license.
Like as far as firefighters participating in EMS training and getting qualified as EMTs or EMR, and any EMTs or EMS providers that have an interest in fire getting.
Well, they just have to get their license first. And then you talk about in-house training.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, we did it yesterday.
Yeah.
Last night, we did water rescue training
With
with
combined.
the fire department. Yes. And a bunch of them that showed up on the fire department. We were gonna do it on the ambulance, cause we usually do that.
Okay,
And, so then I put it out to the rest of the fire guys, and we got a bunch of them to come,
cool.
so, yeah.
There was also a discussion about having a public meeting at some point to point blank ask what the public wants. And then allow us to ask them questions. What do you want? What issues have you, what do you like? What do you don't like? Whatever. I mean, we can all talk to our neighbors, and then we all live here. We all know what we would like. But just as an open forum, to hear from them. And then we could also answer whatever questions they had. Dispel any rumors or whatnot. Prior to that, I suggested, before just going carte blanche with anyone and everyone, potentially having a meeting with other committees. So that way they could almost field questions, like turn around, and we could get an idea in a more controlled environment, what kind of questions we're gonna be asking them, what they're gonna be asking us. Before being confronted with anyone in the town. baby steps. I'm still getting used to this. Um, so I'd say he had a couple of other committees in mind that would be good for us to converse with, just to get outside opinions, outside thoughts. Once we have more of an idea of what we're gonna recommend.
I will clarify that they would be committees that just have people on them that are really involved in the town. They're not committees that have anything to do with emergency service.
Correct. And then if it does come to it, potentially getting, the internet involved, whether it's, polls, surveys, questions, using social media to our advantage. Because I know we'll only get so many people to come out in person when the time comes. And there's a lot of people that can't physically come out, but can respond electronically or participate remotely, at a time of their convenience. Anything else that we conversed about recently?
Yeah, just had a question. Who does the rescue, like extrication, ice rescue, that sort of, is that you guys?
Fire department. When they pull them out, then we take it from there.
Got it.
We just had 2 people on the fast board that did join fire department, so I got 2 fire department. That's what the biggest thing with the ambulance is, you have to be trained. Fire department, you be doing eventually, they'll take, reach a level 1 at least. So level 2, so we can take your buildings and some stuff.
Right.
Not everyone has to be certified on the fire department, because you do need people to help pull hose and, work with the engineer and do his thing, so.
But you need so EMR would be the lowest. And that
That guy'd be the one probably driving,
driving most of the time. Should need at least the basic in the back.
yeah, which would be nice. Even if you had, he gives you that second license.
Dan's numbers, if you guys want to hear them.
Sure.
So I ran the averages, call volumes. I used today's pricing from Lebanon because I don't know what the cost was all the way back, but I used those averages. The 3-year average cost, if Lebanon was to run everything at today's cost, 3-year average call volume, I guess, would be $140,160. If I take our last 3 years, our average cost was $106,305. So, I can run, I know what we're doing this year, which I don't have right in front of me and what we're doing, but I think it's obvious to say it's a little bit cheaper doing it the way that we're doing it. But it's in the,
So let me make sure I understand what you just gave me. If Lebanon, over the last 3 years, our total call volume,
I just
what
took
we
the
did and what they
average,
did.
the average call volume of the last 3 years.
Yeah, in totality, both day and night. And we paid them, it will cost us 140,000. But the way we're currently doing it, with them doing the day and us doing the night, it costs us 106,000.
It did cost us.
It-
So
yep.
I guess the ambulance charge was gonna be a little bit less. It wasn't a lot. I think it was 360 something last year and a little bit less the year before. So that number is gonna be a little bit off, but it's close. And I can
Okay.
look at this year's budget and say, here's what we,
Could I take it a step further then? So let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that they took half the calls and we took half the calls. And I know that's not right.
I can run that average of what the.
Okay.
breakup is.
So where I'm going is, so these numbers would suggest if we took it all in-house ourselves, and we did 24/7, we'd be saving a lot more.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, we would if we ran all on-call part-time people.
So if they did
You
everything,
didn't have to pay someone to do the
You
work.
start adding salaries, then it gets expensive.
Yeah. Can't have just 2.
you said
One
Yeah.
person now,
Yeah.
because I'm going on vacation, so.
You
I'd
can't.
say
Yeah, no.
I would guess you guys would at least like have 6.
Okay.
Full-time guys.
Yeah,
Maybe more.
people get sick, people.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'd
We
like to,
might be able to do a hybrid and do like 3 people and some on calls, but
Yeah.
that would get tricky. But,
that's interesting. I'd like to tease that out a little bit more,
You know, I
and I
could
like the way Bill
play
had
with it
said,
for easy numbers.
yeah,
If you added full-time people, it's $100,000 a year in salary and benefits.
Yeah.
Not counting uniforms and those things.
Per-
but for
per
pay,
person.
Per person. Yeah. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but it's easy numbers for now. All right, 110.
yeah. More than that.
Listen, you don't make that much money.
All right, God darn.
Yeah, and if you could, maybe run that a couple of different ways and send that around, I'd love to look at it.
Yeah, I'll clean it up and then
Yeah.
I can look at this year's call volume and
Yep.
like project a little bit and I
Yeah.
can look at last year's actual costs, which I
Yeah.
can probably find if I dig around a little bit
Yeah.
and see what that was together, but.
'Cause what I'm thinking, I always like to enter projects like this to say, okay, what does finish look like? So let's say we know that on March 15th, I'm just drawing something out, we want to present something to the select board. Let's put together the outline of that presentation, but not have it populated with the real data. And that's one of the types of things I think if I was on the select board, I'd want to see is, hey, you looked at this from a couple of different angles. Here's what it's currently cost. Here's where we could save money, but here's the downside. Here's boom, 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 boom. That's some good analytics there. And then quantifying all the things that we're just talking about kind of qualitatively now, like, oh, we could blend the ambulance and the fire. Well, why? What's the measure? I mean, what's the money we're gonna save there? What's the improvement in services we're gonna have there? What's all that type of stuff. So
Well, like I told you last time, and he could talk a little bit more to the morale issues and
Yeah.
things if you do that, because I don't. know what it would be, but
and I just throw that out as an example, but
yeah, there's no cost savings. Let's throw that right on the table.
yeah,
I think the only thing you could possibly earn in 3 to 5 years is a little more people doing both. We're getting some of that anyway, but I think if you get some crossover.
Yeah.
That's probably it, and I think you guys work well together. If you didn't, I think you'd get more.
Yeah.
cohesion,
Yeah,
but
they already do. Yeah.
I think they already do work well together, so.
Yeah.
Just that. Save Richard a little bit of time if he didn't have to do as much admin stuff. Other than that, there's not a huge gain from that. It's,
Yeah, and I was just using that as an example, but I don't know what that presentation looks like that we would give in March. So I almost suggest that's one of the things we want to talk about sooner rather than later is what does finish of this advisory committee look like?
and I think the other, not to cut you off, sorry. I mean, both departments are starting that regrowth phase.
Yeah.
The fire department's really starting it. Richard could talk a little bit more to the, I'm gonna call it the tear down, but we had some struggles prior to me coming here when the whole way the fire department
Yeah.
works was changed.
Because back in the day, it was the fireworks system, which would be like selecting the fire department. And we had some turmoil in the fire department. We used to be really, really tight. I mean, everyone was tight, so which is disappointing. We had some stuff happen. Some people didn't like it, some people did, but kind of fractured us.
Mhm.
So there's still some of that there.
Mhm.
I mean, all the guys, we still care about each other.
Yeah.
People kind of chose a side.
Yeah.
Which we can get ugly sometimes. The ambulance has always, for a long time, not from its inception, but for a long time, has been by itself. So we didn't have that problem over there. But, yeah, it definitely fractured the fire department. It's coming back. It's a building process. We still have a lot of people on the roster. I'm just speaking as a member, a captain of the fire department. So it's slowly coming back. You're gonna lose some. Hopefully that everyone will come back to where we need to be. Because back in the day, I mean, they taught them to go out everyone. It's just not that way right now. So eventually I think it will get a lot better. We got a lot of younger people now. I mean, when I used to go to the meetings down there, there'd be 40 guys. If you didn't get there early enough, you'd be standing in the hallway.
Mhm.
You know, but volunteerism isn't what it used to be.
Mhm.
As long as I've been on the fast route, we've never had enough people. They want us to do on call. Just, you know, people would be taking 3 or 4 shifts a week and we still would have enough people to cover. So it was a good idea.
Mhm.
We still do it like I do every Monday. I'm on call, but I can only do so many days, you know, just like everyone else.
Mhm.
So that was kind of, and I told the selectmen that it was kind of doomed from the beginning because you just didn't have enough people. You know, that's what kind of upsets me a little bit when people kind of, it used to really bother me, not the fast one. But what they don't realize is one, they're getting a pretty good bang for their buck.
Mhm.
An ambulance is gonna show up, whether it's 11 Enfield, we're gonna make sure there's an ambulance there,
Mhm.
you know? And, they just don't understand, I guess, that people have lives.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
in the shower, your sud's the tone goes off, you know, what am I gonna do?
Mhm.
You know, you can't be everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier for the fire because 2 guys show up on the truck, all you know is that the Enfield fire truck showed up. All they know is, oh, the ambulance didn't show up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that comes in.
But at one point, that fire department was big enough to staff 2 fire stations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It
Well,
was,
that-
it was rocking. Yeah. So there were some decisions made, that were not, and the person was told, don't do it because it's not gonna be good for the fire department. And they still did it, so. But that's water under the bridge. You know, you gotta move forward.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of really good people. We have a lot of good trained people. You know, it's just trying to get them back on the horse again. And I used to be one of the top people that used to go all the time.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you, I don't go as much anymore. You know, I try to go as much as I can. If there's a fire, I'm definitely gonna be there.
Yeah,
But the 3 o'clock in the morning alarm activation, probably not.
yeah,
Not after I've been out 4 or 5 times during the week for med call.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, people just get tired. So
Yeah.
the volunteerism isn't what it used to be.
Mm.
I think most people would agree that that's like that across the board.
Mhm.
And you're asking a lot from people to make sure they're fully trained. And obviously you want to have your people do more than 48 hours every 2 years.
Mhm.
You know, so that's what you do. You know, because someone's life could count on you having that little extra bit of training.
Mhm. Mhm.
So. But we do have 2 people, I'll tell you that, we got one that went up to advanced level, we got another one, she's gonna go to advanced level, and we got 2 more people that are, actually gonna take the class. So. A lot of it is family members that are, you know, my wife, my daughter, this person's fiance is gonna do it, his brother's gonna do it,
Yeah.
so. You know, you kind of pull your family into it.
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
it, too.
yeah, yeah.
So you have the help to do it,
That's
you
not
know,
uncommon. is it?
yeah. You get them to buy into it, you're all
Yeah.
set, so. Yeah, it's just been a tough thing to do it, cause it is a pretty big commitment, and I don't think people realize that, what a commitment it is. You know,
We have on the plans to talk with any of the other committees that are looking at growth trajectory in Enfield. Cause they're making plans about how we're gonna get bigger, right? And if there's things that they're planning to zone, right, shouldn't we take that into consideration? Like the
Isn't
new
that'll be
businesses
hard.
and stuff like
I
that,
mean,
like,
That's truly just data on growth,
Yeah,
because they're changing zoning. We're not gonna be able to quantify what the growth will be from that,
okay,
but we can look at the history. The bad thing is our history, we've been declining in population.
Forget
But it's also an aging population. We can
I just let
look
them
at
speak.
call volume. We can think about things that might be coming, whether they end up here or not. So, I mean, usually on a town manager level, we look at 2 to 3% growth as good, fair, not aggressive, but a good level. So we can look at something like that, but I think you'll find the numbers are fairly small, but we can run something.
okay, cause they know about like the new businesses that are coming into town and then therefore the other things that would be associated, right? I had heard that we're getting a new pub or so in the old laundry facility.
There's a new brewery.
Brewery, right? So like,
Really?
yeah, I mean, across the street from a restaurant, right? And so that's already seeing increased traffic, but in theory, we could be seeing more accidents after people leave the brewery.
Especially on bikes, it's right on a rail
And-
trail.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, it could bring more people into town,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is great, but that's something they know about. I would assume the applications for those types of things. Right? Should we be coordinating and thinking about?
I don't think they're gonna know how many they'll bring into town. What we could do is do like, I guess, call volume by people. You know, how many people do we have in town
Yeah.
now?
I
You
think
know,
it's a good idea.
tourism's a hard one to gauge.
Sure.
Just how many more people are we bringing into town, what's gonna happen, but
Did you have a sense for how the population changes seasonally here?
what I've heard is it goes from about the 4,600, what the census says. I think we're at least closer to 5 to like 7,500. So a couple thousand, a little over a couple thousand in the summer, that more than we have normally.
I think you're onto a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of forecasting,
Mhm.
and we show all of our assumptions. So we're assuming that, for instance, Laramie Farms is the big development they're talking about behind Jake's. Let's assume Laramie Farms happens and it's everybody's living there by the end of 2026. Whatever, pick a point. And then we assume that another Laramie Farms happens every year for the next 3 years. After that, here's what happens to our numbers, and therefore
Right.
now we're starting to get to the metrics that would trigger something needs to happen in the fire department and the ambulance, exactly. And you can argue with the assumptions that we used, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We're not saying these are right, we're telling you they're wrong. But at least we have something that we've drawn a line in the sand. I think it's a great idea.
Well, and I think it comes back to yours, and there are some,
Comes back to what?
to your thought process of,
The benchmarks.
you know, there are national benchmarks that we can talk about.
Yeah.
I don't like to just use them strictly, but, you know, there's a benchmark for, you need this many officers for this many people.
Just
You
like,
know,
just
and then
like
I
they
think
said
we
that-
need to look at things like, on the police one, I had trouble with this. I came to town and went, wow, we have way too many police officers for a town of 4,600 people.
Mhm.
But then you look at that other number, that's
Yeah.
700 or 7,000 something, and it's like, okay, now we're a lot closer to that.
Yeah.
I always had heard, the police chief says it's actually higher now, but I'd always heard one police officer for every 1,000 people. Like, well, now we're like right on target.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think we aim for our low season, and
I think the last time I looked, it was one police officer per like 800 people or so.
yeah,
So, which would bring in
and then
the
there's,
number closer to what Roy was saying, that technically they should have 9.5
Yeah.
officers for a town this size,
Mhm.
based on the national metrics benchmarks.
then you have to look at a lot of other things, because, you know, I'll just use an example. You get a little farther from us. That way, I'm not gonna name a town, but say we had the same size town another 15, 20 miles down the road, they're farther away from Lebanon, so you have less traffic, you have less crime, you have less all that stuff. So I think you have to take those types of metrics into account as well. In your tourism rate and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So it gets complicated, but I think you take that average and then you massage it a little for your community and say, I think we should be here. So that's a good way to do it. We can look at what we think the growth will be, but I almost think you'd have a better presentation to the select board to say, when we hit this population or this level of call volume, we should really be looking at this instead of, I think we're gonna hit that in this year and we should be planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, either way, but I think it's a good exercise to go through.
Yeah, I like that metrics.
I like your idea of trying to forecast and plan, but for something like the brewery that's supposed to be coming to town, I don't think that that will affect fire and EMS much. I mean, the building's gonna be completely up to code from the fire standpoint, so it's gonna be sprinklered, it's gonna be monitored, all that stuff. And it's the same thing that the fire chief said about the housing project, the development that's supposed to be going in Miami Farms. It's like, he's not too worried about that from a fire perspective, because it's all gonna be sprinklered and monitored and alarm system and the whole 9 yards. Not gonna be much of an issue there, assuming it all works.
I think it'd be more for medical calls.
I think
Definitely, I mean, if we're talking, a couple hundred people moving into town, yes, it's gonna increase volume, but
And
Probably not.
MBAs.
Yeah, hopefully not dramatically.
I bet you're
Right.
talking 12 to 24.
yeah, I don't know that it would increase it that much, because looking at the plans and stuffs, I don't see elevators in any of those buildings. So,
I was just thinking that.
yeah, so
That
that
tall of a building, I hope it's got an elevator.
4 or 5 stories, yeah, so that
Yeah.
means that means it's not gonna be any elderly. Which elderly make up a big chunk of typical EMS homes.
Yeah, that's a long ways to legacy.
I'll have to look at that, because I think those buildings technically would have to have.
Yeah,
I didn't see him just briefly on the there. Um,
I don't think they're allowed not to.
Yeah.
um,
I just
so-
think new people coming in, driving on the streets and the ice in the winter and all those things, or if we're bringing more opportunities for people to be driving inebriated behind the wheel, we're bringing more of those opportunities into our community. And I know like the thing I think about that we haven't gotten to are the other community aspects where I see the differences, right? I've got a kiddo in Enfield Village School, and when it is snowy or icy in the morning, that means there's no police officer there to cross kids in front of the school. So like those impacts, right, as we get bigger, those are the things I'm thinking about. I want to get to those things.
You mean like not having an officer available when it's bad weather?
Just making sure that we're looking beyond just the call for EMS. But the other services that are happening in the town.
So like, police and fire.
I feel like we're talking a lot about fast squad and all that, and you're here, and like, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we're, all the aspects.
Um,
Real quick, I mean, you said the township population is declining, but is it getting older?
It is.
That would be more concerning to me more than anything else, because I agree, I mean, the baby boomers getting older, there's a major demand for providers, things like this, they're gonna be much more in need of services, whether it be fast squad, EMS, police, whatever else. So I think the aging part is actually probably more critical really than the size.
And the call volume's going up.
Yeah.
I think
Because of
that's
the aging
probably the
population.
number you should look at on
Yeah.
what's the average increase looking like.
We can put that into the model and show, here's what it has been historically, and here's what we're projecting for the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. I think it's a great coin.
Yeah.
People working from home now, there's more people in the area who are.
But you're also getting retired people home. I mean, my neighbor moved in, he's got the two daughters were technically considered elderly, they're both 60 with a 80-ish-year-old father who's demented. I mean, that, I guarantee you, that's a fast squad call probably sometime the next year or something. And they're working, and they're working the yard and they're out there so whether it's a simple fall injury, whether it's a major injury, whether it's just a simple left the burner on the stove, kind of whatever. Kind of thing. I think the aging part is, I think we're really, that from a demographic point of view is really.
Yeah, I did get some ice cream for a little old lady the other night before I left.
See, there you go. That's one good thing, you take care of them, they'll take care of you, so.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. Are you all set? Well, I'd like some ice cream. I'm like, okay. There you go.
Some of the
You're a
best
good
cookies,
man.
I just-
Yeah.
I had some pictures bringing some of the best cookies, I was always a worthwhile thing.
I'll put this in something a lot better for you guys on the numbers, but I ran last year's actuals.
Yeah.
And it was 102,565, so a little lower than that 106, but I think that ballpark is.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So in round numbers, it would cost $500,000 to do it all in-house ourselves. Costs about $150,000 to have Lebanon do it for us. Costs us roughly $100,000 to do it the way we're doing it.
All right, yeah. So how
So-
would we, I'm sorry, Bill, no, man.
So, doing it the way that we're doing it now, that 106 is just Lebanon's cost.
No.
No,
It's the two together. It's what we pay personnel to
But it's
respond.
really small.
okay,
And Lebanon coming in.
The Lebanon part's the big part.
We probably should bump that up a little to 110, because, one, we're running more calls now in-house, which is gonna lower the cost a little, but we really should be and will be increasing the pay of our
Yeah.
community providers. It's been quite a while since we've done that.
okay,
And some of that's my
Let's call
fault.
that one 110, 150-ish for Lebanon to do it all. At least $250,000.
Yeah.
Probably more than that.
Half a million.
How would we operationalize what Christine just suggested? And again, going back to that presentation in March that we're gonna do, we're doing, just as an example,
December,
September,
December.
December.
We're trying to get it done for budget in case anything comes up.
So how would we operationalize what Christine just said by December and build a model that has a whole host of shows historical and then has a host of assumptions that shows Enfield over the next 7 years, let's call it, we could argue what these points are. And shows growth of Enfield and shows points where different things need to happen. It's gonna
I
take,
think we just document what data we want, you know, the call volume. So Emily can run most of this, and she ran a ton of data for you guys. I need to get with Bill and sit down with her in a meeting, if we can look over that and say, this is relevant, this is relevant, this is relevant, we'll bring it back to you guys.
yeah,
Instead of going through all those data points at one of these meetings.
Now, some of that is probably not. For dissemination. Some of the information she looked at.
No, I think she put some stuff together for here. It's
okay,
not,
All right.
it's not the one she did for you guys.
Yeah.
That was a whole different thing, but no, she pulled a lot of the data points you had talked about. We can run call volume and even put in this year and project what we think we're gonna have and look at call volume growth. And I mean, those are pretty easy spreadsheets to build.
yeah, No.
If we tell her which ones we want,
yeah.
she can have those built for you with charts and graphs and all the pretty stuff.
Okay.
We can get those numbers. We just need to know which numbers we want to run. We can run that all day long.
I don't need to get going. I'm gonna ruin your quorum, so if there's anything that needs to be talked about. That's a quorum.
I would almost say if you guys can think about what you would like to see documented. And get that to me and or Bill before the next meeting, we can discuss that a little deeper and then we can get you the data quickly.
So
I want to see some demographics.
before I can answer that question, I need to get inside your head a little bit more, Ed. Can you tell me what you think that presentation looks like in December? What are the key things you want to communicate one way or the other in December?
I think the key thing and the reason this whole committee was put together
Yeah.
is what does our emergency services look like 3 to 5 years?
Okay,
So what do we want to do? And then, like you said, what's the data that backs that? I think call volume's a key that has to be on there. What is our call volume looking like? I can tell you it's growing, but what does it truly look like right now? And what do we think is going to happen over the next few years?
so you're gonna go in December and you're gonna say, I put together a committee. And they came up with a recommendation of what we want our EMS to look like in 3 to 5
EMS,
years.
fire, ambulance.
EMS, fire and police. And they came up with this recommendation based on this level of assumptions. So you're gonna need to know from us what assumptions, I'd like to hear that from us as well.
A little bit. I mean, really what they want is a recommendation. You know, they're hearing from within themselves and outside that We need to start adding some full-time EMS and fire personnel. We don't need to be doing that. We should be contracting completely. I mean, they're hearing all the same things we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's, instead of them spending meeting after meeting after meeting, trying to boil this down to what do we want to do.
Yeah.
They've tasked you guys with saying, you know, do the research, ask the questions that you think need to be asked, talk to the public, and come back and say, here's where we're at, and here's where we think we need to.
Okay.
And then I like the idea, I don't think they've thought about it, but I like the idea of saying, and here's the bars that I think might trigger something else.
Okay.
We need to start thinking about maybe some full-time people when we hit this population level or this call level.
Okay.
I think that would be a great presentation to set them up for the next, I'm gonna say 5 years. I try to plan in 5-year increments, but much farther than that, and we're really throwing the dice out there. Much shorter than that, we don't have time to implement things, so.
Okay. So what you're asking us to do is everybody to think through what data we would need in order to answer those questions and send that to you and Bill.
Yep.
Right.
And we'll make sure, she probably already pulled it, but we'll make sure she pulled it. We'll put some things together. I might even invite her pretty soon to come go through data with you guys, talk about it.
And that's what I said to her today. I talked to her this afternoon.
Yeah. No, she's
She's
gonna
well,
end up here.
so.
She's gonna end up here talking data.
She's
with you guys, and she's our data person. so-
Yeah, I talked to her on the phone myself and yeah,
Yeah, there's a million
The-
points of data.
the
she-
numbers, yeah,
Sure.
the data.
She has the access to all that right at her finger. Yeah, it's a little harder for us to access it.
I don't have the final 2023 numbers. I could get them quickly, but I'm pretty sure they were the same as the years before, and we were 357 in 2021, 357 in 2022. We were over 300, 301 in the beginning of November, probably 357-ish. And she said we're on track to be quite a bit more than that this year, but I don't know where that's headed.
But we should also know how many people were employed at each of those years too, right? To see if there was wavering, because right, didn't you have fluctuations in how
Yeah,
many
usually
people?
what happens is I'll have one.
This is total call volume.
Right,
So it's not how
But-
many they went on and how many Lebanon went on. It's how many calls came in for it.
but if we're saying there's these thresholds that associate with maybe hiring another person, making sure that there's distinguishing factors about what the past included and who was hired or who was volunteering, et cetera, right? And especially if we're worried that we're in the next 5 years, volunteerism is not gonna go this way, it's gonna go this way, right? Like, we have to take that into account too.
It says, is this roughly 10 calls a day,
One call a day.
One call,
350
It's
360, 350, yeah. the
calls? Oh, okay,
350.
got it, okay.
Sometimes you might get 3 or 4.
Yep, yep, no, I
On a
I misheard the
day.
number.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, that's an awful lot.
About one a day, yeah,
That makes more sense.
on average.
Um,
I think this year we'll be a little over that.
other places I've been, once you. I think we're a long way away from hitting it, but. I wouldn't be surprised if we found that the numbers were, once we get closer to 2 calls a day. If I remember correctly, that's the typical breaking point for most agencies, for when to bring staffing completely in-house.
Well, and that might be something worth researching. I mean, I wouldn't know that, but I would bet there's some sort of data out there about
Yeah,
call volume and when you should start thinking about.
just like hospital systems, once they reach. Five member hospitals is the breaking point for when, okay, no
Yeah.
longer cost effective to farm out the interfacility transports, we need to bring it in-house.
we should probably also do these things by months to take into account for the seasonal population changing. Right, so if there's call increases in the summer,
We could look at that. We
Right.
could take like Memorial Day to Labor Day and see what the average monthly call volume is. And
Are you thinking, because that would affect,
because if it goes from
Increase.
5,000 people here to 7,000 people here, like, does that account for anything, right? Or is there just a peak associated with winter time, right? Then you'll get that on the month by month or even like quarterly.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well, let's say half your calls are in 3 months, so the summer months, well, then obviously you're easily well over two a day, in which case you need more of a paid staff.
More,
So-
maybe
Or
a
seasonal
seasonal paid staff
Yeah.
instead of
right,
all year long.
Yeah.
If you can get it.
If you could find
If you can
that.
get it, yes.
You're king
I
of
was gonna
volunteers,
say,
good luck
I
with
see
that.
where you're going, but
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know how it
I-
affects whether we hire more or not, but
I do know from the hospital side of things, from the
Right.
ER side of things,
yeah.
we really don't see that much of a change in patient volume. Season to season. I mean, yes, in the fall and late in the spring, there is usually a lull just because
have a
people are
hunch?
not typically as
do you
active.
guys get a little busier in the summer?
But
I think we stay pretty consistent most of
Yeah.
the time.
But-
You get a spurt.
it's in the
Little spurt
summertime.
every now and again.
Yeah, in the
How many
summertime,
people-
The clusters all.
Yeah,
through the
yeah,
year.
it's odd,
in the summertime, you get people out and doing summer activities if they get hurt
right?
and
Mhm.
whatnot. Then in the fall, you have hunting and other outdoor activities that people get hurt. And then in the winter, you have all the winter sports.
Mhm.
And then in the spring, you have people slipping and falling instead of now on ice and snow, they're slipping and falling in the mud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each season has its own challenges, but across the board, it stays.
But if we have the data,
Yeah,
we should
take a look
do
at
our
it,
due
take a look at it,
diligence,
Take a look
yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus
cause they're
then,
either gonna take it or they'll discard it.
Yeah.
At least they have the data.
so is everyone good with the next potential meeting on the 12th?
I'm good with it, but I can't make it.
Okay,
You're good if we meet without you.
yeah, so we have at least 4 that will be here on the 12th.
Yes.
Okay,
And check.
the next one after that wasn't until
So
The 10th of October.
webpage,
10th of
yeah.
October. So would anyone be open to meeting the week of the 23rd? That would make it every other week. So
That's fine, that's what
I
I
would-
booked in my calendar.
I could do the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Would be the 3 that I would be able to go. If you have enough people to do it, you know, without me, that's.
I could also do the 23rd, 24th and 25th.
I can do the 24th.
24th, yeah, if we could stick to Thursdays, that would be,
24th.
preferred. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about
September.
October, September. Tuesday. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's same time, 4 o'clock, for available.
Up in the air, you know,
Yeah.
if 4 o'clock's too early. If 4 o'clock's too early and we wanna do 6 o'clock, or if we
I
wanna
can't
do
do
it
it until
early,
after 6:30 because my husband gets out of work and I
Oh, my
hand my
God.
kiddo.
Tuesday, the 24th.
Any day my kiddo gets out of school or gets picked up at 6, my husband gets out at 6:30, so I have to hand him off and then I could get here. So if
Other-
it's later. then-
The other consideration, if you do that, is we're gonna have to check with Elisa on meeting space. It's
They have other meetings in here.
4
on
o'clock's
Tuesday.
pretty easy. It's pretty
Okay.
open most of the time. When you get in the evenings, we're down to just a couple meeting spaces with the renovations going on.
Gotcha.
You
Do
get
the
busy. I think
24th at 4 o'clock.
Tuesdays are pretty good.
Tuesday, the 24th at 4.
I'm gonna pencil that in. I gotta go.
Pencil that in. That's why I wanted to just,
Thanks.
And if
Thank
you
you.
set a long-term
Thank
schedule
you.
like that,
that's what
it'll
I'm,
be a lot easier for.
that's what I'm trying to do. That's why with the survey that I sent out, we had enough for those, I think, 4 dates. So, and I figured we could talk about it more today.
Will Lisa update the website? On the
Yeah,
calendar?
even today's wasn't on.
Yeah, when we get her the calendar, she'll plug them all in the
Oh, I think,
website. So
I
they're
think we're,
more.
that's how I know.
And
I
we
sent an email out this morning,
I knew, oh, I didn't get your email this morning.
or at some point today. I don't remember when.
That's interesting.
I have a weird thing with my town email. It's like the last meeting, the email showed up 2 days later. I'm like. Whatever.
I'm gonna start using that one.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like. I'm still on-
So when you wanna holler at me about something,
Today,
remember that.
Make sure I'm
I'm
on
still
that.
on Tuesday. I'll just say, well, it
Yeah.
didn't show up until.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like,
We have weird things. I'm not an Office fan. I've cleared my emails
Yes.
completely and
Today.
then go back in later and I have stuff from like a week ago.
yeah, how'd that happen?
Don't see that it's sent.
To just me or to everybody?
Everybody.
Everybody, okay.
As we said, I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I typed it. I have it here, but it's like drafts instead of sending. So I got Roy, Phil, Jeffrey, Dan, Christine, Ben, Enfield Town Manager, and EMS Chief. Myself. All right.
Yeah, if you send the calendar out, Adam, send me that.
Okay.
Or put in there for me to forward it to one of the big things.
We had
Everything's set up.
6 of us. That's 9. So I'm missing 1. Roy, right?
Yeah.
You, Phil, Fire Chief. 1, 2, 3, 4. Me, Ben, Christine, Dan, and Jeffrey. Jeffrey, it's only 5, so we're missing 1. There's 6 of us, correct?
What's, like I was saying,
The gentleman lives on Mascoma,
Don,
yeah, it's the golfer.
the golfer, yes.
Don,
Don,
McKee.
John, yeah.
Becky.
Mickey.
do we have
Mac,
his email?
Yeah, he's not on this email list from a week ago either.
So that could explain why he wasn't here now.
I hate that. It works.
Oh, man, he's the one that started the conversation a couple weeks ago about when's the next meeting. Yeah, so he's Dean Pekin 321 at Comcast.
His message.
That
The
was
only thing I saw was
August
Rich.
15th.
I've sent you that message. So you should get that. His email's on there.
Boy, they always have a lot of new people up the year, huh?
Hmm.
It's crazy how many people they have that come in and out of there.
You got 6 new grads in there right now,
Crazy.
but we need some scrutiny.
Emily,
Still short.
Emily Tavia did a great job. Great job. I like when she's in charge,
Yes,
little shorty.
yes.
That's awesome job.
There's a handful of them in there that are doing a great job in charge. Yeah. Um. All right. So, right, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's 6. I have an extra 1. No, so there's 2 of you and Lisa. So it should be 11.
Yeah.
All right, so I will send an email out to that group just with the dates of all the meetings. So she can update the website. Something else on the website that,
She'll do that and she'll double check all the dates that the meeting space is available, and if not, we
Let us-
can shuffle either
Actually,
the
find
other
something.
committee, or we'll let this committee know that you'll meet somewhere.
Chief, would you have room at your place for a meeting if needed?
You can absolutely come down there. Yeah, you're welcome to come down there. It's very dark, okay, so I'll tell you. It's a very dark space.
Yeah,
Rich cut that.
Yeah,
we have space to find it.
All right, is there anything else that we needed? Any other questions?
No, I'm just,
We have marching
writing down my homework. I'll try to get you guys something next week. Yeah.
What numbers do we want? What metrics do we want?
Yep.
And then I guess I'll send you an email with some dates as to when I'm for dinner.
I'm out till next Thursday,
You're out until next Thursday.
but if we can meet.
You're,
Thursday afternoon or Friday,
okay, you're off for the weekend, Labor Day weekend.
pretty much in a year or two.
Yeah. There are a couple of days extra. Yeah, and then I'll be around for about a week, and then just after our next meeting on the 12th, I'm out of town for 10 days. Okay,
I just think it might be good to sit down and look at what data I have had some. Yeah, I'm hoping she has most of what you guys asked for already.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to play with it, but
I will say that I'm surprised about the difference in the number only being 40,000 off. Looked at everything versus what we're doing now.
My budget's not very big.
and it may be different, but we won't have those numbers before here.
No.
I'm hoping with our increased call volume in town, it's decreasing on that side.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, and we can probably run that number, but you know, on a per hour basis, it's a lot cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
The average call, even with the transport, to get back 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah. So when you guys are talking about increasing funding for stipend or paid on
Yeah,
call,
we get paid $3.50 an hour for the, on-call.
$3.50 an hour for on call, and then if you run a call,
Get paid, get an hour to show up. Get 2 hours of your transport, and get either half an hour to an hour, depending how bad the temps is. So that's just the way it's always been.
And you also told us your rate was lower than.
Yes,
We need to fix.
Yeah.
Address that.
I pay the guy that sweeps my floor more than that, so, and he don't have to be trained, so.
So.
second? Second?
Like,
Thank you, guys.
No,
Thank you,
thank
Chief.
you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you guys need me, let me know. I'll be here.
I think you can easily say.
I hate to miss meetings.
I think you can easily say, if we
It's
run
great that you're
calls,
here.
it's half the price.
it's half the price than if Lebanon runs calls. Really,
I rounded up a little bit, or about,
roughly
it
half.
was like 140 with the time he said times 2 people.
Yeah.
And then we had some costs on there that I didn't do with, you know, fuel and ambulance maintenance, and those things that would go into that.
And the response time is the same, about 15 minutes.
About the same. It's close enough to the same to say they're the same.
All right, so I'll go back to, if that's true, and I believe you, that's about half the cost. Why don't we take a bigger portion of the day?
Gonna have to get
Personnel.
Because people,
Yeah, I wasn't here when that was written, but that was written because between 6 AM and 6 PM, people are working, they don't can't.
That's pretty.
Yeah. yeah,
So one of the things we talked about last time was the possibility of almost giving a shift differential for people who work during the daytime.
well, that's where I was going was, is the rate limiting step to getting more people, the fact that we're not paying enough? And if we paid more, and we certainly have room, because we're only half the price, we could, not gonna do this, but we could double their salaries. And we're still gonna be less, because,
Yeah, your operational costs are.
exactly.
So,
The 6 to 6.
So if, let's say, everybody if you were, if offer 20% more than what you're currently paying, would we get more people?
Everyone makes way too much money. They work at DART, they work at the hospital, they work.
So it's not the money, it's not the money per se.
No,
No.
they are saying, listen, we need to make more than this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I think the better word is availability.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I'm
what
hearing.
it is.
The only way you'd be able to, I'll say, sway them away monetarily is if you got up in excess, I'd say, of 30 or 40 an hour.
and what do we pay
I
right now?
think what you might.
Anywhere from 60 to 18.
Yeah,
So-
see, and I put
We want
20
double,
for the
yeah.
number.
Getting up into the 20s would be,
Right, right.
that would be better, but.
Yeah.
And the 6 to 6 is very common in the industry, just because even though, let's say, everyone works 9 to 5, you gotta have time to get home after your shift,
Mhm.
and then in the morning, 6 o'clock is usually the cutoff, because if you go on a call at 6:30, you might be late for work, between the time of getting there, responding to the call, getting to the scene, loading up, transporting, turning over, getting back, restocking, doing your charting. It's too close at that point.
Yeah, I'm only on till 5 o'clock when I do on call, because if the last call comes at 5, I'll go.
Yeah.
But I can't go at 6 because
You gotta get to
I
work.
gotta open my
I was
business.
gonna say, I bet you it's hurting to hear that in people's minds where the cutoffs at.
Yeah. But I think that's a.
But what you might do, if you pay a little more, is recruit some people that are at home or working from home or that could go, that don't have.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna take my personal time to go for $16 an hour, but
Right.
for $25 an hour, maybe
Yeah.
it will.
Do you think there's any way of, or any possibility of adjusting the contract with Leb not to read on dispatch, but almost to give a chance for people to respond during the day?
We can,
We
with their annual contracts,
Mhm.
so I mean, at the worst, you guys say, hey, we'd like to do it this way. And wherever we're at in that contract, we wait till the end of that, to do it.
I don't think they care when we cancel. We canceled them the other day. We just have to, I'll be home at 5:30 and we grab the call.
Right, but I mean, but when we do that, are we still getting billed?
Yeah, because they get.
If they call,
they
I
want,
was
sure.
explaining, you could correct me on it, I was explaining, they call in, they're on call. And they're usually pretty quick about calling and on
Yeah,
call.
I was gonna say, I think pretty
Yeah,
much if they leave the station.
yeah, I think that's what it is now.
Even if they call
But
their
it
zoning
used to be.
and you know that they were still in the station, we could
Yeah.
probably talk our way out of it, but.
Right.
But yeah, once they acknowledge and they're going, then
Mhm.
we're,
Because to me, that would almost be the detail that we would need to work out is, okay, if we are paying more and we are finding that our people are able to handle day-to-day calls, occasionally, not all the time, not even half the time, but some way of being able to.
yeah, we can do what we do in the evening, or we can adjust.
See,
that.
we have done that before.
Do you
Where-
guys use,
We've had people at home. They say, can I take it? I said, yeah, I'll call over and talk to Chris Christopoulos, the chief.
Mhm.
Chris was like, yeah, that's fine.
do
So,
you guys use, what was the app called? I'll find out what it is, but there was an app that we used to use that members could from home or
well, we have
whatever.
Google Doc.
Huh?
We do Google Docs where you can.
I
sign
am
up for
responding.
on-call.
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking of.
Yeah,
I am responding. It's an application you can have on your phone. You can have it up on a screen at the station and whatnot.
You can do that with your active 911.
Active 911.
That's how we know.
Well, okay.
That's how I know when people are coming,
Uh-huh.
just like on the fire, so
So with Active 911 though,
Yeah.
can you mark yourself as in service? And
yeah,
if we have two
Yeah.
people in service,
like right now, I'm in
And-
service.
so can Hanover Dispatch see that?
Yes, they can see. They can
So
actually
we
follow
have-
us. They can see us on the map.
So
They
if we
could
have,
dispatch- they could dispatch
could we
you first.
redo our dispatching with Hanover so that during the day, if we have two people in service in town, that we not immediately dispatch lead?
I don't know, I always err on the side of patient.
And we can
Patient care.
pretty much do what
I
we
always
wanna
do.
do.
Yeah, no, I get that completely.
Yeah,
But if we have two people just trying to, with budgets and numbers and
Yeah.
especially if we are able to go ahead and increase the amount we're paying per call significantly. Like if we are able to get into the mid-20s or upper 20s and then use that as an argument to be like, hey, yeah, okay, we're paying two people $25 an hour for 3 hours worth of work, but we're not spending $364 to have Love come in. But we would need a way to make sure we're not paying Leb $364 plus.
No, we can definitely work those details out. That's easy. We're on a year-to-year contract. We can do it that way, or we can do, hey, we're gonna tone out, and then a few minutes later, we're gonna tone out again, and if it didn't happen, they get called. That's,
cause they do it 5, 5, and 2
Okay,
for toning. First tone, second tone, third tone, then mutual aid's coming.
and is that during the day as well? Or
No,
6
no,
to 6,
that's
just go
com-
straight there?
Yeah,
Okay.
at night. I mean, some towns, they're pretty quick about saying, don't tone again.
Mhm.
So if you don't tone again, it looks like you're really rocking it. But in reality, you know, that's why I always look at active 911 to know, okay, I got a guy coming.
Yeah.
You know, rather than toning out again. And you sign on pretty quick to do that, so. There are ways to skew the numbers. You just gotta figure them out. So believe it or not, some people are better at it, so. That's skewing them.
Cool. All right,
Plenty of
very good. Thank you.